neighbours or by the targets themselves.
This was one of the officers sent in to check out the property. For security reasons, we've hidden his identity.
Initially, we found one of the plantations on the property, which was approximately 12,000 plants.
I got a phone call from Detective. He was quite excited. He basically said, "Steve, we've hit the jackpot. We've found a large cannabis plantation. There's plants everywhere, and in the thousands."
We thought that there could have been further crop sites on the property. We then identified a second crop site of approximately around 10,000 plants, and then a third site of around 10,000 plants. So you're talking about, 3 homebush-based stadiums of cannabis plants. It was an extremely sophisticated setup. There was extensive irrigation system set out up throughout the crop sites. There were pipes going for kilometres.
The surveillance was risky, as this never-before-seen police footage demonstrates. It shows Canistra and some of the crop sitters engaging in some random target practice. Matt is right in the line of fire.
At one point in time, a firearm, a .22 calibre rifle, was brought out from the shed, and a number of the offenders on site began firing the rifle into the bushland. Now, unfortunately, we had 2 of our officers conducting surveillance from that location. The shots were coming within metres of where they were laying. In fact, one of them told me he could hear the bullets ricocheting off the trees around him.
I was concerned for my safety. There was a chance we could have got shot.
Police stormed this property just before 6 o'clock this morning.
We seized in excess of 30,000 cannabis plants. We estimated potential street value of $60 million for that single crop site.
Once into the rugged gorge, police found a sophisticated network of irrigation, dammed creeks, pumps and above-ground sprinklers.
It was one of the biggest busts since Griffith in the 70s. Vince Canistra was arrested on the plantation. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to a minimum of 4 years and 9 months jail. Plenty of his Mafia mates ended up in the prison around the same time.
Between January 2003 and the end of 2004, so a period of probably 24 months, we seized in excess of 100,000 cannabis plants spread over about 10 properties.
Every one of those cannabis plantations had links to the Calabrian Mafia. In the world of Italian organised crime, the same names just keep cropping up. Whether it's marijuana, extortion or fraud. Griffith might have been out of favour as a dope growing area, but there were other local opportunities for enterprising Calabrian crooks. One car insurance scam involved a rogues gallery of Griffith identities. Families would stage bogus accidents and then make big injury claims. It was an extremely lucrative operation.
At one stage, the insurance industry of New South Wales estimated that the town of Griffith alone had received $40 million in what was estimated to be fraudulent insurance claims from car accidents.
The scam was as simple as it was brazen. Mafia families would drive around looking for a suitable crash site. When they found a good spot, they'd contact their friends and relatives who would hide nearby. Once the coast was clear, the Italians would stage a minor bingle. Then everyone would emerge from behind the bushes to claim they'd been injured in the smash too. No one in the claims office seemed to notice that there were more people injured in these accidents than there were car seats. It took the insurance companies nearly 10 years to wise up, but by then they'd handed out a mozza. Victims were making around $150,000 per accident, and some made a claim every year.
Yes, of the 21 people named by Justice Woodward as principals in the Griffith Mafia organisation, at least half of those have been involved in suspected fraudulent car claims.
Next on Gangs of Oz. Abduction, adultery and a jilted bride. The extraordinary chain of events that brought down one of the new generation of a major crime family. The Calabrian Mafia is an intensely secret organisation. Its members rarely break ranks. When detectives do get a lead, it's usually from solid police work, or a slip-up of some kind, like a misaddressed parcel or a speeding ticket. But in their wildest dreams, the cops could not have imagined the chain of events that brought down drug trafficker Joe Barbaro. Joe
Barbaro comes from one of the major families identified by Justice Woodward as being involved in the organised crime and production of marijuana in Griffith.
In 2004, Joe Barbaro was on the run, wanted by New South Wales Police over a major amphetamine ring. He dropped out of sight until his 3-week-old daughter Montana was snatched from a shopping centre car park in Melbourne.
You have to feel sorry for the kidnappers of baby Montana Barbaro, not realising, of course, that the baby they'd snatched was the daughter of a major mafia figure.
The newborn baby Montana was snatched from her in a brazen daylight attack.
Please just take her somewhere safe and call the police.
In the days after the baby's kidnapped, there was no sign of the father, which raised a lot of eyebrows.
A desperate Joe Barbaro finally and reluctantly emerged. The freak abduction of his baby daughter brought him out of the shadows and onto television screens around the country. And that wasn't a place Joe wanted to be. Among the millions following the story were the New South Wales Police. Suddenly, they knew exactly where to find fugitive Joe. It was manna from law enforcement heaven. And they weren't the only ones surprised to see Joe Barbaro pop up on the television.
Also surprised was his fiancée, Tanya. Tanya, of course, was not the mother of baby Montana. No, she was the mother of 2 of his other children.
It's like being hit with a truck. It was just a disgusting feeling. And
gutted and heartbroken, today Tanya Flynn is desperately trying to come to grips with the news her future husband and father of her 2 children has been leading an extraordinary double life.
She, of course, went on television sadly waving her wedding dress and saying that her forthcoming nuptials to Mr. Barbaro were now off since he had a wife and other children back in Melbourne.
So there obviously was a time where you thought you were going to get married.
we also did think we were going to get married.
Little Montana was found abandoned in a derelict house 40 hours later.
The couple have been remanded in custody and are appearing in Melbourne.
The 48-year-old woman who kidnapped her already had 6 children of her own. But she wanted another baby, and she believed her only option was to steal one. She was sentenced to 4.5 years jail. Her husband was sent to jail for a minimum 7.5 years. Joe Barbaro was extradited to New South Wales and is serving 4.5 years for dealing amphetamines.
Joe Barbaro, of course, had relatives that also met unfortunate ends. His own father, of course, was shot to death in Brisbane. His cousin Pasquale Barbaro was murdered alongside Jason Moran in Melbourne. And his uncle Rocco had a shocking misfortune where he was shot in the back of the leg. New South Wales Police thought it was a kneecapping, but his uncle Rocco maintained that he'd accidentally shot himself in the back of his own knee.
Compared to many others in his family, it was a good result. Then there's Pat Sergi of Fairfield, named in the Commission report as a drug trafficker and money launderer. He's been good friends with New South Wales Labor identities, Joe Tripodi and Reba Ma.
Pat Sergi's fortunes have flourished since the days of Woodward. Not only has he been awarded an Order of Australia, but his connections to the New South Wales Labor Party have been very interesting.
Pat Sergi has maintained close ties to the Labor Party. He's still a major figure within the party.
Both Ma and Tripodi thanked Pat Sergi in their maiden speeches.
I would also like to thank Pat Sergi, Michael
They say they had no idea of his history.
Sam Romeo.
All these years after the murder of Donald Mackay, the Calabrians still have friends in high places, and their world is as closed, as secret, and as deadly as it's always been.
Calabrians are now so well entrenched in Australian society, and they have such good global contacts, that they're basically able to get whatever commodity is most likely to sell for a good price. The Calabrian Mafia worldwide is a much bigger and more organised organisation than the various police forces that are investigating them.